And good evening, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. We have another edition of our monthly St. Albans Today show coming your way on this Wednesday, December 6th. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to our guest, Bruce Cheeseman, the St. Albans Town Selectboard Chairman. Bruce, Alan Mashtare, the Director of Public Works for St. Albans Town, Alan, and Marty Manahan. Marty, I don't think I even have to ask you, the Director of Operations and Business Development for St. Albans City and a former mayor. Thanks, gentlemen, and happy holidays. This will be our last show for 2017, so happy holidays.
Finish strong.
Finish strong, there we go. And just had a walk a couple of hours ago in the town park, some nice Christmas lights down there. And Alan, as we talked about off here briefly, you've started some work on a temporary skating rink, just looking for Mother Nature to give you some colder weather one of these weeks.
Yeah, if Mother Nature
maybe a little less wind wouldn't hurt too.
A little less wind. We were all set up trying to freeze in layers, and the wind kind of got under and wrinkled her up a little bit. But next calm day, we'll get her set out, a little more water, hold her in place. But hopefully next week things cool down and we start getting some ice built up.
Yeah, it sounds like by mid next week you're going to have some much colder weather. So it'll be right on the basketball court.
It will be.
Is that the obvious place, just with a hard surface?
With a hard surface, nice and level, so we should have a nice surface right there. And it's a short walk with people coming through the gate. They can park right along the asphalt parking right there and walk out to the rink.
I guess that makes me think, Bruce, will the portable toilet make a return for winter skating season?
It sure will.
It will?
Yeah, it will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And speaking of that part of the world, I also walked on the dock today. I've seen some work on the dock. I know you were getting some folks trying to get a better handle on the state of the dock, but I've seen some work out there. What's going on there?
Well, we got some engineering work going on right now. And what we want to do is we want to repair what we have, and keep it from deteriorating any more than what it is.
Yeah.
The big question right now is, what do we want to do with it? Do we want to continue to use it as a dock, or do we want to use it as a pier? And the last thing we want to do with Chuck putting in his new marina next door, we don't want to compete with Chuck.
Yeah.
But the dock is big enough to handle some large vessels, and maybe once or twice a year we have some pull into the bay. So we think that we'd still like to be able to accommodate, the larger vessels when they come in. But we certainly aren't going to compete with Chuck in trying to rent out slips. So I think we're probably looking at more like the pier thing than anything else, where people can go out and relax and sit down and then, enjoy the hot summer nights and do a little fishing. Maybe put some lights on it, some power, and dress it up so it can be enjoyed.
Possibly increase and possibly raise it also?
Possibly raise the elevation, yes.
You're about 98 feet now, so typically you get some flooding at least in the spring, maybe into early summer.
Yeah, it's underwater for, depending on the weather, of course, but in the spring it is underwater for a while.
Well, I got to think the marina folks, again, the lake's pretty low now, as it was a year ago. Yeah. Got to think the marina folks are hoping there'll be a fair amount of precipitation over the winter.
I know they got their fingers crossed. They're expecting, they're hoping for a good season next year. They're going to open in May.
And they're set to go.
They're set to go. Yeah.
They're in the process of setting up now.
Yeah.
And they put a lot of thought and planning into it, and they've got an 80-foot ramp that goes out to the first landing. Huh. So adjust with the water levels. So it'll be pretty exciting. It's going to be
a floater.
Yep. Yeah. It'll be it's well planned out. It'll work out good.
Of course, they're pretty close, obviously, to the town public works garage. They're kind of almost right next to you, almost.
Yep. Kind of right in their backyard.
So they've been asking you for some guidance, Alan, on what they're doing. Have you been talking to them some?
I've talked to Chuck quite a few times. Basically, getting permission to get on the dock with their cranes to let them. Moorings in and some of the docks, a little bit of the storage. Yeah. But I checked over their sidewalk plans and stuff like that, but everything's well engineered.
Yeah. How are you faring with the Public Works garage? Of course, a vote a while back trying to move it to a different location that the voters didn't go along with. You getting by down there?
Getting by. It's small, but we have a planning commission put together, and they're meeting and looking into properties, and eventually we'll go to the voters and try doing it again, get a new garage.
Yeah. And Bruce, the town-owned Brigham Road property is still under contract to entity. Nothing
new to report
on that.
No.
at some point in 2018, we'll
After
learn what's
first of the
going
year.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Marty, biggest news in the city. What's a big city story these days?
It's pretty quiet right now.
Yeah.
Just finished up our Fairfield Catherine Lake Federal Catherine Market Street project for the season. They'll probably come back in the spring and do some tweaking on the landscaping, and they may end up having to do some more paving because they put the final layer down kind of late. But other than that, we've got a planning meeting set up next week for next year's sidewalk and curb project. So we'll be looking at that, coming up with a list of streets we'll be doing next year and getting that out before the council probably in January. And then bids, I believe, for the water plant upgrades and stuff are coming in next week, and there's a bid opening there set for that. So
Water plant or wastewater plant?
wastewater plant, yeah.
Okay. So that work should start in the spring, presumably?
Hopefully that's the goal, yeah. It's a big project, and it's a matter of scheduling once they award the bid and stuff. So, but other than that, just keep plugging away.
Yeah. Speaking of wastewater, Bruce, again, sitting down with the city manager again to talk about the ever thorny wastewater issue.
We are. Actually, we've met quite a bit lately.
Yeah.
Friday we'll meet again. Be the second time this week. I'd like to think that we're getting very close to something that we can present to the voters. I know the city's been pretty cooperative, and we've been exchanging ideas and going back and forth on a few issues. But I think we're getting there. We're getting close to coming up with something that we would present to both the city and the town.
Really, obviously not a March town meeting. November, is that the likely year?
The reason that we're meeting so often right now is we're going to we'd like to do it for March.
Oh, you may have something in March.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
That's our goal.
Really?
Yeah.
That's right. Marty, anything to add or subtract from that? An issue you've dealt with over the years? Yeah. This is a live show, at least if you're watching us live, folks. Love to get a call. Plenty of St. Albans issues to talk about. 527-6449 is our regular number. Budget work well underway, Bruce?
It is. We had our first budget meeting last night. Probably the first of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 that we might have, but we're in pretty good shape this year. Town financially is in real good shape. I don't think we're going to see any major increases anywhere as far as the town's concerned.
Yeah.
But we got a few things to work on. It's all going pretty smooth.
Any members of the public showing up last night?
No, they didn't, surprisingly enough.
You'd like
we
to
normally
see...
don't see them until we get toward the end.
Yeah.
So, what we do is we throw our wants and desires and wishes in there for increases, decreases, and at the end of it, we do a little hashing and slashing and try to come up with what we want to present to the voters.
Yeah.
And normally we get the participation toward the end.
Alan, what about Public Works Department of the town? Looking for significant changes next year, or anything you're particularly hoping for? Or?
No, we're pretty even keel this year.
Yeah.
Looking into a couple different trucks that need to be upgraded. Other than that, trying to keep the budget running about the same. Not a lot of increase to the taxpayers, so.
Ready to go. Snow's been pretty, just a couple of inches of snow so far. I suspect that'll change down the road, but you guys are ready to go if we get snow one of these days?
Well, we heard it isn't going to snow this year. So
no snow this year, huh?
Yeah, we've actually been out 3 times this year.
Yeah.
Of course, we have French Hill and up over 36.
Okay.
So the higher elevation, it's amazing, just that little bit
That's
of...
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like Bakersfield's had a couple of even 4, 5, 6 inch snowfalls.
They have.
So they had a couple 3 inches maybe up there for a couple times.
Yeah. But I mean, the little storms are worse than some of the big ones. You get that 1 inch crust and ice is over on the hill. So you scrape it and get the salt down and get it melted down.
Yeah. So what's the salt sand? What's the story these days with salt sand or in between whatever the other stuff is?
Expensive.
Expensive?
Yeah, the salt prices are a little higher this year.
Didn't it go up by like 6% over last year? Something like that?
A little bit, yeah. It's usually do the state contract, but the state had some wording in their contract that wasn't quite right, so all the municipalities paid the price this year. We weren't able to go with the state contract. So it's put us out funding for ourselves to get the salt.
It seems like salt gets some bad words in places. Do you try to use less salt, or do you kind of use have you got kind of a regular, whatever you need to do for depending on the kind of storm it is, or?
We're making brine, and we spray right at the spinner, and basically that makes the salt into like an oatmeal texture, so you're using less salt, dropping it on the center line, letting the car spread it. The city uses a magnesium, does the same thing. It's just a little bit different product. So it cuts down on the use of the salt. So not a lot of sand gets used anymore.
Is that right?
Yeah. You don't want the runoff going in the ditches and a lot of phosphates and that head towards the lake. The state kind of shies you away from that.
Yeah. Marty, city ready for winter? I realize it's probably not exactly your bailiwick, but...
No, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah.
We've been out a few times. They just got a new truck about probably 3 weeks ago to put into the rotation, and we're looking at an additional sidewalk plow, so part of the CIP program, but I think we're in good shape. We use brine downtown. Obviously, the concentration for those guys is the business district, especially with the hotel and stuff there, and the new work we've done on Federal and Lake, so the concentration is there, and then they've go out into the residential areas.
So voters approved a big sidewalk fund in the city at last March annual city meeting. Did you get all the work done you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's going to be about a 4, probably, we originally thought it was going to be maybe a 3-year cycle.
Yeah.
We may end up getting it all in 3, but probably 4.
Maybe 4.
So last year we did a lot on the west side and finished that up. And this is the meeting I was talking about. Next week we'll be looking at doing the east side. Probably most of like Ward 1 area will be done. High Street, Bishop Street is probably going to get done. That's in pretty rough shape. And then any of those streets that have a curb will also get a new curb. So, and last year we made the decision, we went with a precast curb as opposed to a pour in place, and it worked out pretty well. Purchased it through Camp Precast, who made a pretty large investment in new forms and stuff for that, and so we'll see how those fare through the winter and probably go in that same direction next year as well.
So the again, the paving, the Federal Street, Catherine Street, Lake Street, that's pretty much gone, is finished? I mean,
yeah, that's done. They were putting signage up this week.
I saw them doing some painting, crosswalks and stuff
right.
a couple days ago.
They did some planting down on the Market, Catherine, Stebbin Street area. A property that we bought from Norm Stanislaus that we ended up just reclaiming and putting in a little grassy area there on the end, a little better sight lines. And then next year we're going to apply for the Class 2 grant to pave Federal Street. We were in pretty good running this year, but our timing, we just didn't feel we could get it done in time. So we waited, and I think we'll have a pretty good shot at getting that, so we'll be able to pave the rest of Federal Street all the way over to Lower Newton. And then probably what we're going to do, we've discussed it, I think what we're going to try to do is the residential areas that we're going to pave, we're going to try to follow the sidewalk project. So areas that we put new curbs in and stuff last year that didn't get they obviously cut the road up to put the curbs in and stuff, we'll get new pavement on those streets. So we'll try to follow that project around as we go. So, yeah, so other than that, we should be in good shape. Kingman Street we've got design plans for that. It's now just waiting for some funding. We're probably going to get to that maybe in 2019, 2020. So. And
Kingman, you're talking streetscape now, or just okay?
Yeah. So taking out the sidewalks on both the north and south side, reconfiguring the parking, creating some bump outs similar to what we've done on Main and Lake and Federal. So putting in a crosswalk probably mid-block, coming out of the garage area to get across.
So after this 3 or 4 year period you're talking about, will all city sidewalks have been?
Probably not all of them, but probably 80% of them.
Really?
Obviously, in the last 10 years, we've done some.
Yeah.
So those won't be done as part of this project, but probably 80% of the sidewalks in the city will be completely redone.
And Bruce, sidewalks getting some attention in the town as well?
They are. We have a new sidewalk plan that's going to be out, I'm going to say, well, before the end of the year. And yeah, there's a lot of areas that we'll be putting sidewalks in. Kind of a little bit tougher in the town,
Yeah.
because it's so spread out. And, we've got developments that aren't fully developed and stuff. And so a little bit tougher to plan sidewalks in a town than it is in the city.
Yeah. Fire department merger, that's an issue that's been talked to. Haven't seen much written on that for a while. Is that still moving along?
It's moving along. I haven't heard any talks about anything lately.
Yeah.
But it seems to be, it was a real heavy topic of discussion
Yeah.
for a while, but it's kind of cooled down a little bit
Yeah.
recently. So I think what it is that, people wanted to, I think it's a good idea myself.
Yeah.
I think the more we can do as a city and a town to save the taxpayers' money is exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah. We may come back to that. We've got our first call. Go ahead, caller.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Henry. How are you?
Not too bad yourselves.
Good.
First thing is, Marty, is Upper Welborn Street and any of the streetscape plans for sidewalks?
Not at this point, no. It won't be this year. It will be in the next couple of years, but it's not probably going to happen in 2018.
Okay. And I want to thank the chair and the head of maintenance for the town. You guys have put in a lot of work in a short period of time on getting the Bay Park looking like it used to. And now up at the forest, town forest, I appreciate that. Is there at some point in time you're going to make the trails a little more accessible for wheelchairs up there? And my last question that I have real quick, when do you think you're going to start working on the dock? And now get off the phone, and thank you guys, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thanks, Henry.
Same to you. Go ahead, Alan.
As far as the town forest goes, we have done a little bit of clear cutting up there. We've recently, within the last 2 weeks, made the parking lot a little bigger, more accessible for cars up there. Hoping if the winter stays like this, my crew will be spending some time up there making the trails a little bit wider. When we've done culvert work this year, the good culverts that weren't totally rotted out, I've saved them, so wet spots we'll be putting bridging areas over to take care of the wet areas. So there are some of those trails that are kind of ledgy, so it might be a little hard for wheelchairs, but there are a couple paths up there that should be doable if you got a decent outside wheelchair. As far as the dock goes, it's
we're looking to get going on the dock as early as this spring, as soon as we can get into it.
Okay, again, our number 527-6449. We were talking fire department merger. So you think it's a good idea? Is this kind of the process seems to have slowed down or a little more involved?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, it was a little hot and heavy for a while, but I think people realized that there was a lot of the logistics that still had to be worked out, and we slowed down a little bit and are working out some of that stuff now. But basically, the idea of the merger is a good one, and I do support it. But I do think it's an item that should be approved by the voters in the town.
Yeah. Marty, any thoughts on the fire department situation?
I agree. I think it's, if you take the politics out of it, those guys seem to work pretty well together.
Yeah.
So if you can leave it to them to come up with a plan, I'm sure they can come up with one that's going to work and be efficient, and then put it, if it needs to go before the voters, put it before the voters and let them decide. But I think those guys could probably, once they came up with a plan, they could surely sell it to the voters as well. So
I agree.
That's an issue. You would think that would come up again, not a town meeting certainly, Maybe November. Is there a shot at town meeting?
It would probably. I don't think there's a shot at town meeting, but we definitely are talking about it. Maybe a special vote. Maybe November.
Yeah. So you think that might well get nailed down in 2018 next year?
I do believe so.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I think 2018 is the year for the town.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot of things happening, a lot of good things.
And expound on that, Bruce. What do you see coming up?
We have a really good. We're working very diligently at relocating the town office.
Right.
We've got a good committee working on that. We're actually down to a couple of property choices right now.
Really?
And we're doing some engineering work, some feasibility studies. I think we're real close there. I don't know as far as DPW goes. I don't know if we're 100% sure that we're going to bring DPW along right off with the new town office, town hall, but we certainly are purchasing enough property to locate them there with us.
That was my question. So there'd be enough room if that's how that happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The stuff that we got going on at the dock, the big thing for me, and I mean the big thing for me, is the water and sewer.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's going to just, we need to get going. We need to invest in infrastructure in order to entice more businesses to come to the town. And I think along with the negotiations that we've been talking about, the financial end of it, we've also been talking about, both the city and the town getting together and promoting the area as one, so that we can all benefit from it. A lot of good things that are going to happen in 18.
So what are the chances? Give me a percentage chance that water and sewer gets resolved in 2018.
Well, I'm going to say there's a 95% chance.
95% chance. Marty, you gonna
take it to Vegas?
Yeah, we've got another call. Thanks, caller. Go ahead. You're on St. Albans Today. Fire away.
Yes, I figure I had to call in just to find out who that young guy is in between the two Pedros on the left.
Thanks for not mentioning me, at least.
We're kind of missing you, Dave.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank the Allen's work and the man in the park, that Bay Park really looks outstanding.
Yep.
I thank him for the Christmas tree lights at the Bay Park and also in front of Town Hall. It gives some happiness to that old building. I still feel that the Town Hall should stay down in the Bay. It should be. We ought to buy the property, which is the old bowling alley, and put it there. And I think as far as the highway garage, sooner or later it's going to have to move off the lake. I think it should be on the Brigham Road. We have 72 acres up there. We could sell half of it, and the other half put our new town garage up there. I do feel that new town garage, the one that was put before us 2 or 3 years ago, should have longer depth stalls so you can put two pieces of machinery behind each other. We don't need a Taj Mahal. We just need a place for the guys to park their equipment, get it out of the weather, and offices and handicapped bathrooms. We don't need to take and buy property up on the corner of the Fisher Pond Road or over on exit 19. That is my opinion. That we ought to make contact with Pat Vincent and see what we can do is negotiating that, because I think that's where a lot of the town people that I talk to a lot that want to keep the town hall down in the Bay.
Bruce, any reaction? Is that
Well, I think if you talk to people as often as you do, Dave, and I know you talk to a lot of them, I think I personally have found that the majority of the people I talk to are in favor of relocating the town hall. We have talked to Pat Vincent on more than one occasion about purchasing her property. For one reason or the other, it never happened. I just think that with the growth of the town, the majority of the growth is on the north and south side of the town. And that I think your town offices should be located near or close to the higher percentage of the population. And when you take a look at the study we did, renovating the existing town hall versus building a new one, I mean, you're talking about the same amount of money,
Really?
or very close to it. even with the Vincent's property, we still don't get enough acreage for growth. Okay, we do have, right now we have an existing mound system there that's going to fail. And if we were to relocate there and renovate, we'd want to make it bigger. The mound system that we have right now is only adequate for the size of the building that we have. So we'd have to increase that, which would take up more property. We'd have to add more parking spaces. There's a lot of work that has to be done. But the bottom line for me is you put the town services close to the majority of the public. That's the way I feel about it.
Will that issue go to voters if you?
Oh, absolutely.
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 So you'll have a proposal for this is where we'd like to relocate.
Absolutely.
Town
I
hall.
we have to be as transparent as possible. And I don't like making decisions, especially when it comes to big dollar items like that, without getting the voters involved. I mean, some would say you can do it legally. I don't care if you can do it legally or not. I think the voters have a say in how we spend their money.
Now, can you use, again, your local option sales tax money, Kitty, well over $1 million, I think? Mm-hmm. Could you use some of that for the town hall?
You could, because that money's been dedicated to infrastructure.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of infrastructure that's going to have to be done, whether we relocate or stay where we are.
Yeah.
And that's, you're not hitting the taxpayers up for extra money. That's money that's there in a kitty available to us.
And that is well over $1 million right now. Certainly over $1 million.
We're pushing $2 million right now.
Really?
Close to 2.
Yeah.
Wow. David, what would you like to see done with that money? Anything? Got any particular things?
Other than a home in Florida, go ahead.
Well, first of all, the money can't be used unless the voters okay it, and the whatever the Selectboard's got for an agenda to take and put it on the ballot. The voters have to vote for it because that's the way it was set up, that the money can be used only when the taxpayers say you want to use it for a town hall or town garage. But, the town garage should be up on the Brigham Road. The old town garage, if anybody walked through it, it's quite old. It's done what we wanted to do, but we need to get it, all the equipment under cover and not leave it out in the open.
One of the things about the property on the Brigham Road too, they talk about we own 70, 80 acres, but what they don't take into consideration is the amount of wetlands that we have within that property.
How significant?
25%.
Oh, really? And again, the entity.
That's correct.
Whoever this entity is who's under contract with the town, they would take all that land?
They would take all the land, and but there's some stipulations there that I'm not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
Where they might accommodate the town on a couple of different issues.
David, anything else for us?
Yeah, Marty, when are they going to paint the fire station and the police station over there? That looks like it hasn't been painted in 20 years.
Yeah, we're plugging away, Dave. We don't have the funds that some communities have, so we're trying to do the best we can with what we have. We've got a number of projects that we're working on that may include relocating the public safety building, so I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to put a lot of money into a building that we're going to probably be vacating here in the next year or two.
I agree, because that used to be the old grain company building, and I just think if you're not going to move for 2 or 3 years, I'd say throw a can of paint on it. But if you're going to move
it's going to take more than a can of paint.
Then don't put any more money into it. Put it in a new building.
It's going to take a lot more than a can of paint. Unfortunately, there's a lot of rotten wood that if you're going to do it, you want to do it right. And
yeah, that's true.
if you're going to sell the building to somebody, it may require that. So.
Another question for you, Marty. In reference to stormwater runoff, I see on public access that you've had people there talking about the utility tax instead of putting it in your budget.
Correct.
I think every town's going to be looking at that, and even the town of St. Albans, because they're already talking about it when I was on the Selectboard.
Yeah, that's a big question that the state is facing, and they're going to have to figure out a way to make it work. And now I noticed on the news tonight they were talking about the carbon tax again, so there's a lot of scary options out there.
Yeah. If you got any more employees up in the city that want to come and work for Public Works, the town would be glad to take their experienced people away from you.
We're always happy to help the town out. Our loss was certainly the town's gain. Without
Yeah, they work good together, both the highway departments and the fire department.
Yeah.
So let's hope we can keep it that way. I'll get off the line in case somebody else wants to call in.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
The stormwater runoff, is that an MS4 related issue? we're
Right.
talking- And
Right.
the price tag for that sounds real significant, right?
It does, but I don't think anybody is really aware of what the price tag is. We're grabbing we're grabbing at straws right now. I really don't believe that, I'm talking for the town, that we don't really know what the price tag is on that yet.
And our permit that we got for the wastewater upgrades is being appealed by CLF. So they're going to probably, they'll be at the bid opening. But so the money that we could be spending towards
Oh, is that right?
towards improving that,
Some good old legal fees.
right,
huh?
towards legal fees. And
fees,
we're
yeah.
reducing the phosphorus as part of this permit.
A reference to Conservation Law Foundation.
Right.
And their beef, Marty, is...
They want it reduced. They want the phosphorus level reduced even more than what we are proposing and what the state requires.
So one would think their beef would be with the state and not the municipality, but...
It is, but this is their way of
their way
dealing
of-
with it. They've
all right.
appealed ours and I think 3 others that are going for upgrades. So,
Weren't they talking about like 0.1?
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's a heavy lift.
Ridiculous.
And the worst part about it is
And of
if you
course,
really want to
and
deal
point
with it.
source pollution is hardly the big issue here.
Right.
Right.
It's like the shoreline protection law they passed a couple of years ago. I have a camp down on Georgia Shore, and we can't touch anything on the shoreline.
Right.
We can't touch any trees or anything within 200 feet of the shoreline. We can't increase any impervious surface within 250 feet of the shoreline. However, every municipality is exempt, the farms are exempt, and the state of Vermont is exempt. So the guys who want the lake the cleanest, the people that live on the lake and have property on the lake, are being penalized, while the farm 100 feet away from me can spread fertilizer and do whatever they want, and it washes down the ditch and goes into the lake, and nobody says anything. So if you really want to deal with the problem, they've got to be up front and say, okay, everybody has to play the same game here. And it has to include farmers, it has to include the state of Vermont, has to include municipalities, and it's not just the residential property owner that has land in the city or town, half an acre lot, that is contributing to the problem. So, and that's the challenge, is anytime they come up with new legislation, they exempt probably the biggest polluters, and they wonder why nothing's being done, nothing's happening.
That makes me think of a comment by a former St. Albans town manager who, when we talk about Lake Champlain cleanup, says, Richard, 100 years, things aren't going to be much different. Are you more optimistic than that? Bruce?
A little bit more.
A little bit more?
Yeah.
Marty, what about yourself?
Well, they've got to do something. I mean, my father is in his mid-80s, and he talks about when he was a kid, he could see the bottom of the bay when he went out fishing. But they don't do anything. They don't dredge. They don't allow anything to happen. You've got to get circulation. That's why I think this marina, if nothing else, is going to get some water circulating
Exactly.
through there with
Yeah.
all the boats hopefully coming and going. But they've got to do something. They've got to try something. But anytime you want to try something, you have a certain segment of the population that come out and say, no, you can't do that. Larry King, I remember talking to him when he had his restaurant down there.
Yeah.
He had some pretty unique ideas on how to clean the lake and stuff, but poor old Gould Sussland, how long did he work on it? And to no avail?
Decades, yeah.
So it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But
Alan, any thoughts on that? Are you pretty frustrated by that too? Or you think there's some forward progress on that issue?
I agree with Marty. I think the marina is going to help with more boat traffic, stirring the water up.
Huh.
I'm a firm believer that the harvesting of the seaweed should be done earlier in the spring instead of the later of the fall. I know the state doesn't allow it and that, but a lot of our beach closures came late in the fall, right after they harvest.
Right.
I mean, you got all the seeds and that attached to the seaweed. They go through, they chop it, loosens up, it starts to float, and then you start getting the blue-green algae. And, I didn't have that problem until they harvest.
It's a problem we have to deal with more often than just June and July too.
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Marty, back to the fire department, police department, public safety building. So again, Fonda, the old Fonda site, Solo site's been mentioned as a possible site for a new public safety building. That's still
Yeah,
very
that's
much
that's on the radar, and possibly
have you got better choices in that site?
We do. We've got the Fonda site may include public works and having everything on that one property.
Yeah.
But there's some other deals that are percolating that may create some additional space that we could relocate public safety to. And depending on what how the conversation with the town goes with the fire department, if something happens there, does it make sense to do something on the north end with warehousing fire equipment apparatus up there, or somewhere else on the east side of the two communities? And so that would play a part in it as well. So, but I think probably we should have something hopefully within the next year to be able to announce.
And it sounds like you really could use a new public safety building.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Those guys, and they've been patient. They've been good. I mean, we've got a stellar department and everything. And but the dispatch center is a E911 center. They need bigger space there for the dispatchers. The offices for the officers, and they've got a workout room in the basement. And depending on the rainfall and the spring, that has a tendency to flood there. And obviously you can't have your dispatch center in a flood district. So, and you've got the railroad tracks close by. What happens if something happens there? And so there's definitely, but there's been an order of things that we've had, and we're trying to check them off, and that's certainly at the top of the list. So,
Bruce, looking back at 2017, a year that just is down to its last few weeks, highs and lows for the town. What are the things? What do you think were your top accomplishments for 2017?
I think one of the biggest accomplishments is that we have a good select board, and we have people that are forward thinkers, and we have people that are determined to get something done. For years we threw things across the table and up and down and around, and all we ever did was talk. And I think that we have a board right now, and I'm going to go back a little bit with previous members that were on, previous selectmen, like I'll mention the name Stan Dukas. Stan just wants everything great for the town. He wants all kinds of good things, and he's the type of guy that's willing to go out and fight for it and talk to people.
Stan, who for the record hopes to get back on the select board in March.
He does, and I hope that he does get back on the select board.
And you hope to remain on the select board in March.
And that's up to the voters. If they want me back,
absolutely.
I'll be back. If not, then hopefully what I've done is good. So, just everybody getting together and getting on the same sheet of music and realizing that there are things that we need and we've needed, and we can no longer put them off. We got to move forward.
Marty, looking back at 2017, any particular highlight?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot. The one that comes to mind, our continuing revitalization of downtown, the corner at Federal and Lake. That's been something that's been in conversation for years.
I think
the realignment now with the stops. It would have been nice to have a signal in there, but that's another probably $750,000. So what we did with the funds we had available, I think really accomplished a lot.
I think it works pretty well. I mean, I've certainly complained about that intersection, the worst in Franklin County.
Yeah.
To my eyes, easily. That's worked surprisingly well to me.
Yeah, and people are getting used to it, and we've had positive comments on it and everything. Obviously, the opening of the hotel, we had a lot of people say it would never happen, and we were able to pull it off. So just a continuation of what we've been doing over the last few years, I think, are the
hotels.
Continuing it.
Hotels apparently doing pretty well. Is that the word you're getting?
Yeah, doing very well. And obviously the fall foliage helps them, but during the fall they were turning people away every week. They were booked up, and so I think they're very happy with the results.
I know you've also been obviously a very strong backer of the downtown Ace Hardware store, and have thrown in your 2 cents about Swanton. It's really an issue getting a lot of attention in Swanton these days, with Gordy and Debbie Winters hoping to have a downtown Ace Hardware store in Swanton as well. Sounds like a great idea. as far as you're concerned.
I mean, hey, it's a no-brainer. You know, it was obviously an important first step for us. We were fortunate to find partners like Gordy and Debbie. You couldn't find anybody more honest than those two, and we worked well together. We got a project. You know, people don't build buildings like that in downtowns anymore. And they have the opportunity in Swanton, and I think the leaders and everything, it sounds like you've got one individual that has a lot of ideas but has no money to contribute, and is pretty free-willing to be able to spend other people's money and suggest what they should do with their property. But at the end of the day, you know, this is Gordy's hometown, and he obviously has a stake in it and wants it to turn out nice and look nice, and is willing to put his money where his mouth is, and has offered to do it. And again, with the teen center, the support of the teen center, the Chippinellis are looking forward, I think, to a new opportunity with the move. The winners have put up 10 grand. The Stanislaus family has put up 10 grand. You know, for Norm and his son Tyler to come up and do that. I think it just goes to show you the confidence they have in the project and what it could mean for Swanton. So it's a bump in the road, but I think at the end of the day, it'll happen, and it'll certainly prove to pay dividends for years to come.
Bruce, any significant news coming out of the town industrial park? I guess big news has been Ben & Jerry's expansion in there. Yeah, Peerless Clothing.
Yeah, that's about it. It's pretty. Other than that, it's pretty quiet over there. There's really nothing else going on right now.
Boy, it sounds like again there's so much competition.
The chocolate factory still? They've got an expansion.
So that's another expansion project there.
Yeah, but again, you know, in hopes to do something with water and sewer, that might help us move some lots over there.
But
if you take a look at the town of Milton. I mean, I think they just sold their last lot in their industrial park.
Oh yeah, Catamount Industrial Park.
Catamount Industrial Park. That thing's full. I mean, they just had a automotive company move in. It's building Subaru sports cars. That building is well over 100,000 square feet.
Wow.
And
of course, Bose set up shop there after they closed down the Burlington restaurant.
And Old Dominion, the trucking company, has a distribution center there now that they're finishing up. And, you know, those people are moving out of Burlington because there's no more, you know, they're running out of spaces to build, and they've moved into Milton. Now, when Milton being exhausted, if we don't get ready for something, if we don't start investing in ourselves and our town, we're crazy. You know
Milton, I don't know if you're doing work there now, Bruce, you know Milton pretty well.
Yeah, I do.
In fact, I'm there a couple of days a week with one of my part-time jobs. I have a pretty good feel for Milton, too.
Yeah, I'm one of the facilities director for Milton,
We went on a tour recently. I'm on the Governor's Pot Commission, and we toured the dispensary.
What commission?
Pot Commission.
Oh.
We toured their dispensary, the medical marijuana dispensary they have, and it's amazing, that facility, and the number of employees they have there and stuff that you drive by it, you wouldn't know what it is.
I didn't even know. We're talking in Milton.
Yeah.
Where in Milton?
It's in the industrial park. You go down.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you wouldn't know it was there.
No, exactly. And it's the day we were there, they had to have probably 25 people, 30 people there.
Yeah.
Working,
and again, if you look at that town, and I you know, I'm not partial to Milton, I do work there, but they've made some good moves. They've invested in the town. Yeah. I mean, they took their money, they invested their money, and they're getting a return on it now. And, you know, they have a really good select board. They just hired Don Turner as their new town manager.
Talk about somebody who knows Milton pretty well.
Have they hired him permanently?
Oh, yeah, permanently, the town manager, Huh. And he is doing one heck
Don's
of a job.
Good guy. Yeah.
He'll continue his legislative stint. I think he's not ruling out. I think he's going to see how things go with his town manager job. Because I think the first word was he wouldn't run again, but I think he's going to see how that goes. But yeah, he's the permanent town manager at this point.
You know, they did all the things that we talked about. You know, they invested in the fire department. They invested in infrastructure. They promoted their industrial park. They encourage residential growth. It's happening.
Give some kudos to your first town manager, Mr. Fitzgerald, who was town manager when they built their municipal building.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Again, I'm in there twice a week. They did a nice job with that.
They did a fantastic job.
That's right. Yeah. Boy, getting new industry, it just sounds like it's tough. Of course, there's a lot of competition, but you don't, at least I'm not hearing too much about just new industry coming to town. Marty, am I missing? Just sounds like there's not a lot of movement out there. Am I missing something?
No, I mean, we're limited, obviously, with our industrial parks that we have. The big thing for us has been probably the maple sugaring industry with CDL coming in and buying a couple properties down on Lemnod Drive
Yeah.
and stuff. And those guys, they don't have enough room there. If they could get another building, they certainly would, I think. No, as far as industrial, it's probably not
Pretty quiet.
our bailiwick as far as the city's concerned.
Yeah,
We're fortunate. I mean, you look at Myland, and they invested over $40 million in the heart of downtown.
Is that right? Over 40 million?
Yeah, and you've got the co-op, who is probably going to be going through another expansion here in the next year or so.
Great.
So the
Coming
industry that we do have is doing pretty well, and we're diversified. And I think a lot of credit goes to Tim Smith and his organization that has diversified our county. So when a recession hits or something, we fare pretty well through it because we have so many different industry here. But we're close to Canada, so there's some opportunity there, I think, and stuff.
For a while in my earlier years up here, the new industry was all Quebec-based folks coming over to set up a satellite operation here. Just don't seem to hear too much of that now. Maybe, those industries that were doing that have already done it. But I guess holding on to what we have, I guess, I'm sure that's, Tim Smith spends a lot of time just keeping what we've got.
I'm glad we brought up the name tonight because I don't think Tim gets enough credit for what he does.
Yeah.
He works pretty hard at what he does. And he's a good man and well-respected and honest guy.
Marty, City Police Department, are you pretty much at fully staffed for the PD?
I think so. I think we may be down an officer. I know they've got a couple going to the academy and stuff, but they're in good shape. I think it's ebb and flow, and they had one that was out on extended medical leave, but he's back. So, I think they're in good shape considering everything else that's going on.
Boy, it just
it's not
seems
really
like
the profession a lot of people are begging to get into right now.
I was just going to make that point. It just seems like there are a lot of industries. You just wonder if there are enough, workers around, and it seems like there are not a ton of people looking to get into police work these days.
Right, and it's unfortunate and it's tough. It's a tough business, You think little old St. Albans is probably pretty quiet, but they certainly have their excitement. So when you walk up to a car at 2 o'clock in the morning, you never know who's going to roll down the window and stuff. So
Marty, flashing back to when you were mayor, I give you a lot of credit. It was certainly the type of story that some municipalities, cities, communities would not have, liked to have gotten a lot of attention about. But just crime became a big issue, and you kind of took that. I remember Senator Leahy coming to town with
had a judicial
Senate Judiciary committee meeting and stuff. But given
it was the whole opiate,
right,
the
kind of
whole
start
opiate.
when
That was the start of it. Dr. Holmes, again, I was up at his office with my son Isaac, and he asked if he could talk to me for a few minutes, and that was the beginning of it. And we held 2 public hearings, and people criticized us for being out in front of it, and you don't want to have a reputation. And we figured, what, it's there. Let's deal with it and figure out a solution here. And we did. We ramped up our PD. Like you said, Senator Leahy had a judicial field hearing here in St. Albans. I think it was the first time it was ever held outside of Washington, and got the conversation going. So now, in the chief at the time, Chief Jailer said, it's like Jell-O. We'll push it out of our community, but it's going to go into other communities that don't have the presence that we have. And I mean, now it's amazing. Look at the stops they're making on the interstate of cars that have thousands packs of heroin in them and stuff, and running them from New York and up here.
And again, fast forward to St. Albans these days. I'm not sure the official name of it, but the Opioid Drug Treatment Center has opened in St. Albans.
Methadone clinic, basically.
Is that going pretty well from what you hear?
I think so. I've heard. I mean, I haven't heard anything negative about it, and a tremendous break for them. I understand they're very busy. Yeah. But those people were all going somewhere else before.
They're going
taking
to
up
Newport or Burlington. I mean, imagine being, if you're in St. Albans or even Enosburg, having to go to Newport every day.
Very busy, but low key too.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not.
I think these guys know obviously what they're doing. They run a bunch of other centers throughout the state and throughout the country. They have programs in California. I remember when I think it's Jason, the individual who came to present to us the first time. He's kind of the executive director of it and laid it out on the table. And they certainly know what they're doing and have had success. So I think it's going well. In the KC, they bought the old KC Hall, and I think it's a good spot for them, and so
And I guess Northwestern Medical Center came through while they were still working on the KSC Hall. NMC let those folks be at the hospital. Speaking of which, I guess the hospital, pretty good year for the hospital, I guess. Northwestern Medical Center, what, about a $30 million project, and I guess that's done. I guess they're pretty much all set up there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I was there for the ribbon.
Yeah, you were there for the
ceremony,
ribbon cutting,
and-
right?
Which, yeah, it's quite a place.
Yeah.
They're great neighbors, too. They're good people to have
Oh,
within the
absolutely. I
community.
mean, we're fortunate to have
Great
a hospital
neighbors.
like that in
Yeah.
our community. You know, there's, and they do a lot. They support a lot of different programs in the city and in the town and throughout the county.
And it looks like NMC should be in good shape, Bruce. You're not hearing? That sounds like that project should put them in pretty good shape, one would think, for a number of years. And
Oh, I would think so.
not aware of
Yeah.
anything
I would think so, but
major planned up
that's
there.
that's a growing business, though.
Yeah.
Take a look at
Boy, healthcare,
Burlington,
I
you know.
guess.
I think the unique part of that project that I heard was the fact that they went to all these privacy rooms, and the Green Mountain Care Board allowed them to keep the old ICU basically.
Right.
So for future growth, which in the past they always made them tear down the building and demolish it and everything. So they were able to keep that for future growth, and they allowed them to put the second floor on the new building for future growth, which I think is, shows they've come a long way to allow for the foresight of that to happen. I think probably their next big project is their ER, looking at revamping their ER, but they've done a tremendous job, and it's an attractive building. And so I know, as far as the neighbors are concerned, I live up in that neighborhood, and they've always been very responsive to issues that we've ever had and everything. So
It's amazing how they like to get the community involved
Yeah.
in things that they do. They don't work independently. They're neighbors. They're real neighbors in this community.
The good folks, and we do have a call. Thanks, caller. Go ahead. You're on St. Albans Today. Fire away.
Yeah, one of the questions I wanted to ask that I didn't ask the last time, are we going to buy a sidewalk plow so we can have another man to do all the sidewalks, which Act 250 is making it mandatory, just like up at our public access building, we have to put 165 feet of sidewalk. Is the town going to have a sidewalk plow, or are we going to rent the cities?
No, David, if we, when we get what we think is enough sidewalks to support one, we will be buying our own equipment.
At that point, that's a ways down the road, presumably, Bruce?
It's like we have a sidewalk plan, but we don't have the sidewalks in now. Okay, now they put a stretch of sidewalks in front of Handy's. Okay, and like David's saying, the new sidewalks that are going to go in up there. We will maintain the sidewalks that we have to maintain, but and if we can cut a deal with the city, we'll do it. But I think ultimately we'll have to go out and purchase our own equipment.
David, you still there, or are you gone?
Yes, I'm still here because if the sidewalk's put in the town right away in Franklin Park West, who's going to be responsible for it?
We are. If a sidewalk is in the town right away, the sidewalk belongs to the town.
Okay, so I expect to see Alan up there with his shovel shoveling off our sidewalk, which won't be there till next year, though.
I believe our town ordinance says that the homeowner is responsible for the cleaning of the snow.
No.
We do the upkeep of the concrete.
That's something that's up for discussion right now, and in the new sidewalk plan and part of the ordinances. It's been a topic of discussion with the select board. I don't see how we could possibly hold if you've got a sidewalk that's in the town right away, I don't see how you can possibly hold the resident responsible to go out and clean the snow off their sidewalks.
we had that in our ordinances in the city, and we changed it actually in the business district where we maintain it. But up until a couple of years ago, it was the property owner was responsible for snow removal in front of there.
So
and
how'd
I
that
think
work?
that's how it is in the residential. We obviously clean the residential, but
Yeah.
I think in the ordinance it states that it's the property owner is the. But again, I think, and Alan can certainly speak to it better than I can. They work pretty well together. If there's a stretch of road that the town can hit while they're there versus the city, they do it, and I'm sure the same would be done with sidewalks. If there's a section of sidewalk that we're doing and we need to go on, another half mile or something, we could certainly
Yeah, no, I've heard that for years. Sounds like the two PWs work very, very well together.
Yeah, we trade off. I mean, you take like Fairfax Street, Orchard Street, and all of that.
Yeah.
50 feet of it is the city's. It's crazy to think the city's going to go up 50 feet plowing. We plow it. Adams Street's half in the town, half in the city, so they plow it. You know, it's compromise. You know, it's
kind of common sense
it
stuff
is.
for some of that.
It is.
Ellen, is your day, you never know what you're going to run into, but do you not even plan days too much? Because when you show up for work, who knows what you're going to run into that day? Or you got a kind of a rough game plan for each day?
We have a schedule that we try keeping. Mother Nature throws their twist in there. I mean, with a lot of wind, you got some branches and trees come down. So
there's been plenty of wind too.
And a windy
Last
year.
night it was nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was windy.
Kicked up, yeah.
Was it one night last week I heard on the radio that wind gust at Burton Island was something like 50 miles an hour.
Really?
Yeah, I guess I can believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, even just walking down there today, a couple hours ago, certainly, it was hard just walking out to the part of the dock into that wind. It's probably a good 25 anyway.
There's a lot of damage in the woods and stuff too. A lot of
Yeah.
trees down that.
yeah, there's quite a few up in our town forest, and you probably saw it in the park. We got some cedar trees and limbs that have come
Yeah,
down.
you got some pretty good sized
Just-
limbs that came down there.
Been too busy to get in the park, and with the park being closed, it's not like a priority right now.
Yeah.
So
Must bring a little bit of work for some of the maples, the maple
Yeah.
company farms that are out there.
Yeah, you would think so.
We
Sugar
had one
makers.
go down on North Main Street, and thankfully it fell towards the street, not on the house.
Right.
Older couple, they've lived there probably 50 years. And so I got a phone call, and they were looking for some help to clean up. They were going to go cut it up, and typical Allen fashion was, they probably weren't equipped to cut up a tree like that. So we got our Island Tree Service to go in and cut it up, and our crew went up and cleaned it up. And these people donated one of their pine trees to the park, to the one we have in the park now.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it was pretty interesting story that transpired, and Island Tree Service helped move the tree and bring it up into the park and stuff. So
Bruce, you got some good words the town did from the good folks in Swanton with the Swanton Wind Project going away, at least temporarily. No, that was a 3-2 vote. A voice we heard on the show is one of the no votes there. I think not wanting to use town taxpayer. You were in the majority on that 3-2 vote?
I
What was
was.
that, $5,000 you?
It was 10,000.
Oh, 10,000.
10,000. And I
Well,
think
the folks
that,
in Swanton were very appreciative of that.
Yeah.
They
I
got
think
kind of
that-
an early Christmas present with that.
Yeah, I think they only spent something like $6,700.
Yeah, boy, had it gone the whole route. I interviewed Swanton folks here last week. Boy, I would have been 2 minutes. That would have been just real expensive. But
I still think it was money well spent.
yeah, anyway. Marty, final again, last show of the year. Got down to about a minute and a half. Any final thoughts?
tractor parade, St. Albans Co-op tractor parade Friday night.
That is a great parade.
Yep.
For
So
the-
it usually brings in a good crowd. So
And a nice Christmas concert in St. Albans Museum. Carol Ann Jones,
Yep.
I believe, later
Yep.
on Friday night.
yeah, I had a good Festival of Trees last weekend. So just encourage people to get downtown and shop and support their local merchants. Those are the people that are the backbone of the community. So it's tough to see them close, and people say, well, I hadn't been in there in a while. And that's typically why they close. So if we can get people out there, that'd be great.
And Alan, hoping for not too crazy a winter. Mother Nature hopefully will be not too harsh on you folks.
a little cooler weather, get that skating rink up, keep the snow away, and happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah. Bruce, give you the final word.
I told you the skating rink was coming.
Hey, I can't wait. My skates are ready.
Yeah, and happy holidays to everybody out there.
Very good. Thanks to Bruce Cheeseman, the St. Albans Town Selectboard Chairman, Alan Mashtare, the Public Works Director in St. Albans Town, Marty Manahan, the former mayor and current Director of Operations and Business Development. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks
you.
for the calls, and thanks to David, Joanne, and Zach for doing all the hard work out there. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. We'll see you next year with another edition of St. Albans Today. See ya.